My name is Daniel Brooks, and my family has owned Brooks Ranch in Central Texas for over 80 years. My grandfather bought this land with money he earned after serving in the military, and every generation since has worked to protect it. Nearly 2,000 acres of rolling pasture, oak trees, cattle, and small creeks have been our livelihood for decades. Most days were peaceful. That changed when a luxury neighborhood called Cedar Ridge Estates was built just north of my ranch. At first, the new residents seemed friendly. They waved whenever I drove my truck past the entrance. Some even bought fresh beef directly from our ranch. But everything changed after the new HOA board took over. Their president, Richard Collins, believed the ranch was underdeveloped land that should serve the growing community. I didn't think much of his opinion. After all, he had no authority over my property. Or so I thought. One afternoon, while repairing a fence near the north pasture, I noticed surveyors walking across my land. Bright orange flags stretched nearly half a mile through my fields. I drove over immediately. "Who gave you permission to be here?" I asked. One surveyor looked confused. "We're marking the route for the new water pipeline." "What pipeline?" "The one approved by Cedar Ridge Estates." I stared at him. "My ranch isn't part of your neighborhood." He simply shrugged. "We're following the approved construction plans." That evening, I requested copies of the project documents from the county. What I discovered left me speechless. The HOA had partnered with a private construction company on a $9 million water pipeline designed to supply future housing developments. The proposed route crossed nearly a mile of my ranch. No one had asked for my permission. No one had contacted me. No easement existed. Yet construction was scheduled to begin in less than 3 weeks. The next morning, I attended the HOA board meeting. Richard Collins greeted me with an arrogant smile. "Mr. Brooks, I think you've made a mistake," I said, placing the county maps on the table. "This pipeline crosses my private property." Richard leaned back in his chair. "Our engineers determined this is the most efficient route." "Did they also determine who owns the land?" A few homeowners looked uncomfortable. Richard answered without hesitation. "The county approved the project." "I didn't." His smile disappeared. "The project is moving forward." I left without another word. The following morning, I called the best property rights attorney I could find. Her name was Emily Carter. She listened quietly while reviewing every document. After about 20 minutes, she looked up and smiled. "This project is a serious problem." "What kind of problem?" "They're acting as if county approval replaces private property rights." "It doesn't." Emily immediately ordered a complete title search. 3 days later, she called. "Daniel, it gets even better." She discovered that my grandfather had signed a conservation agreement decades earlier protecting portions of the ranch's natural creek system. That agreement required additional environmental reviews before any underground construction could take place. None had been completed. Even more surprising, the proposed pipeline crossed protected wetlands identified years after the original project planning. Those environmental permits were also missing. Emily filed an emergency injunction. Construction stopped 48 hours before equipment was scheduled to arrive. Richard Collins wasn't happy. He appeared on local television claiming one stubborn rancher was delaying critical infrastructure. But reporters started asking difficult questions. Did the HOA secure a legal easement? No. Did the property owner give permission? No. Were environmental permits complete? Silence. Public opinion shifted almost overnight. County commissioners demanded answers. Construction companies became nervous. Investors started asking whether the project had been reviewed properly. The engineering firm quietly admitted they assumed land access would be negotiated later. Unfortunately for them, construction contracts had already been signed. Equipment had already been rented. Millions of dollars were now sitting idle. The pressure grew every day. Richard called me personally. "We're willing to offer compensation." I laughed. "You mean now you want permission?" He didn't answer. Instead, they offered more money. Then even more. But it was never about money. The pipeline would permanently divide my cattle pastures and limit future expansion. No payment could replace that. Weeks later, the court hearing finally arrived. Emily calmly presented decades of land records, environmental protections, and property deeds. Then she asked one simple question. Can a defendant produce a signed easement from Mr. Brooks? Their attorney quietly answered, No. That single word changed everything. The judge immediately ruled that no construction could legally continue across my ranch without my written consent. The emergency injunction became permanent. The entire $9 million project came to a complete stop, but the story wasn't over. State environmental agencies launched their own investigation. Inspectors discovered additional permitting violations affecting several sections of the proposed route. The construction company withdrew. Insurance providers reconsidered their coverage. Within 2 months, the entire pipeline project was officially canceled. The HOA had spent years planning something they never had the legal right to build. Richard Collins resigned shortly afterward. Several board members followed him out the door. A newly elected HOA president visited my ranch a few weeks later. He shook my hand and apologized. We should have talked to you first. I nodded. That would have saved everyone millions. Eventually, county engineers designed a completely different pipeline using existing public utility corridors. It cost more. It took longer, but it respected every property owner's legal rights. Today, Brooks Ranch is exactly as my grandfather intended. Our cattle still graze peacefully across open pastures. The creeks still flow through protected wetlands. And every time I pass the old survey flags that were never used, I'm reminded of something my attorney told me after we won the case. She smiled and said, Owning land doesn't just give you rights. It gives you the responsibility to protect them. The HOA thought they could approve a $9 million pipeline across my ranch with a vote. It only took one lawyer to stop the entire project.